Hello, welcome back, fellow CEOs. Today's episode is actually going to be a really tough one for me because I'm going to be a little unfiltered. I'm not going to hold anything back here. And that also means that I get to be incredibly vulnerable. And obviously that's a little uncomfortable for me. So, well, as I'm excited to record this episode as I'm reflecting on 2024, I don't know, I get to feel a little bit out of sorts. Okay. So bear with me here as I'm sharing wins, but also some difficulties that I've endured during 2024. Okay. So 2024 has been magical, difficult, rewarding, and exhausting. It's been the definition of a roller coaster, right? Up and down around every curve. You don't know what's happening next at times. And so I'm just going to start from the very beginning here. I started out the year in Holly Haynes Mastermind. If you missed it, I talked about this mastermind last week, which is now called the Collective Co-op. And so it was quite the investment. It's actually the largest investment I'd made in my business. And I was super terrified to make that investment, to say the least. But I just had this gut feeling, and I've been able to trust my gut in the past. It hasn't steered me too wrong anyway. Investing in yourself, but also your business, shouldn't be taken lightly, right? And we all know this. And so this investment didn't feel wrong, but it also felt very heavy. And so, but we fast forward to today, right? This is October of 2024, and it was the best investment of 2024 by far. It doesn't even compare to anything else I've done, probably even in my business. Okay. And I've been in business for 5 years. Now, everything I've invested in up to this point in those 5 years has helped me support me get to where I am today. But 2024 has been, like I said, a roller coaster. And so entrepreneurship can be like really lonely. And I really, really felt lonely. I had amazing clients. I have friends, I had business friends, but I felt like I needed more. I needed more strategy and I needed more accountability. I was always the person checking in on everyone else. I was always the person making the plans and, all the things. So I needed someone else to do that for me. And so more importantly then, I needed someone that was super organized, but also had the strategy and results to back it up. And that I also vibed with, okay? You just get this vibe, you have to vibe with the person and it's so much easier. And so I made the investment. And in that case, I bet on myself to do the work, okay? I have an amazing work ethic. I just didn't quite have the plan or the direction for my business, okay? And so my outlook on my worth and what my service is, right? Those things that I love to do, what they provided for my clients, it drastically changed over the course of this year. And I learned to step in my power, my expertise. I learned to be super vulnerable and ask a lot of questions. And I learned a freaking lot this year about business, about myself. I was asked some of the hardest questions I've ever been asked in my life, let alone in my business this year. And those hit freaking hard, especially as you continue to work on yourself. Those questions hit even harder because you can't just not do something about them. You can't just sit with them and ignore them. You actually have to take action, which is a good or bad thing, but I'm going to go with it's a good thing. And so currently, my dilemma is that my capacity is at its max. I've worked my butt off this year, to say the least. I've worked 60-hour weeks at times, unfortunately at the expense of my own family time, sleep, and my mental health. But I learned why I did it. And that's what's super powerful. And I'm not going to continue that, right? So that reflection piece is super huge to do on a routine basis, not just at the end of the year or even once a quarter, but definitely at least once a quarter, okay? So some of the things I did that made me work 60-hour weeks at times was taking on multiple large-scale projects for my clients all at the same time, which pushed me to my max all at the same time, okay? I've hit burnout multiple times, and I've learned the signs that my body gives me when I need to rest and listening to my body, right? That's very important to note. I've hit burnout probably not more this year than the rest of my life, but in a different way. I was working toward a goal and I was not backing down. And so I hit burnout without scaling properly, all the things, right? I've learned a lot about myself in business this year, right? But it's really important to note that you need to rest and you need to listen to your body. When it tells you need to rest, you need to rest. Otherwise, it's going to make you rest when it's the most inconvenient time ever, all right? As a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, all of those things, definitely going to hit you at the wrong time. And so for the first time in my business, I've paid myself a minimum, right? Every single month and sometimes more, which is freaking fantastic. I've expanded my team and really figured out what I actually need in a team member as well and how I'm going to grow my team. I work with clients all the time and work with their teams, delegating all these things. But for some reason, I had this block when it came to my own team and expanding my own team, right? So those are some things that I'm currently working on as we speak. So some of the things that I've actually had to do this year, which I'm sure if you've been in business and you have clients and you have team members, you've probably had to have this happen at least once. And so I've had to have some very, very uncomfortable, very difficult conversations with clients and also team members about things like performance, my responsibilities. I also had to have a very hard conversation with myself. I was letting myself down at times, which meant I was letting clients down at times. And so I actually had to have this conversation with myself, right? I had to actually give a 30-day notice to a client because if a client's going to hire me for my expertise and then they're not going to listen to me, and it's like a repeated thing, especially if it's a repeated thing, that's a lot of mental strain on me, but also my team that I'm not okay with. It's also my family, like everyone that's, involved with me, right? And I no longer subscribe to that narrative anymore. So if you're going to hire me for my expertise, I don't care about the money necessarily. I care about the fact that you're going to listen to me and I'm going to be able to support you in that manner. It's an exchange of things, right? And if you're going to hire me and just pretend that I'm just this figurehead, it's just not going to work out, right? And so I've had to fire a team member. Unfortunately, it was over email because there was no communication for 2 weeks and there were projects not complete. There was a broken funnel. I didn't know what to do. This is the first time that I ran into this situation. And so I was like, you know what? We're just going to cut ties. We're going to take the loss. Not even going to ask for a refund of unused hours and just a bless and release situation. It was really hard for me, but it also allowed me to reflect on the fact that I didn't absolutely have to ask for that refund of hours that were unused because financially I was feeling pretty secure, which is not anything I've ever felt in my business until this year. So huge blessing. And like I said, that's why this year has been super monumental for me and my business and my family, right? And so I've connected to who I am, right? On a very deep level. I've realized what my boundaries need to be and what I want them to be. And I don't allow anyone or myself to walk all over them. I know what these goals are for my business. I feel like I have a strategy. I have a goal. I don't feel like I'm just spinning the wheel. Like I feel like I'm actually getting somewhere. I feel like I'm not stuck on a hamster wheel, for example. And I also understood, like, why am I continuing to show up every day? Like, why do I do this? There are times where I'm so stressed out that I'm like, why do I keep doing this? Right? My goals are driving me to not necessarily burn myself out and walk all over my boundaries, but to really figure out how am I going to do this without stepping all over my boundaries, without, not getting sleep, right? Without working 60-hour weeks, right? How am I going to feel good about this? Because my goal is not a goal for myself, but it is. But my goal is to actually bring my husband home because he works in a really freaking toxic job. And we've had this as a goal for a couple of years. But I want him to be able to come home and be able to help in the house, be able to do something he's super passionate about, also support me and my business and work inside the business. But that is my driving factor. How am I going to replace his income to be able to bring him home? And how am I going to do that in 2025? That's actually my goal. Okay. How am I going to do that? Not, oh my gosh, it feels impossible. It's how, right? I'm going to listen to the right support. I'm going to make sure I'm crunching the numbers. I'm going to look at the data. I'm going to make sure I feel in alignment with everything that I do in order to hit that goal, right? Now, bringing my husband home, I've talked about it quite a few times, whether maybe not on the podcast as much, but this is a very known goal. My husband is an author. Well, he's not a published author yet. He's currently writing a book, but his creative energy isn't there because of his job. And he really wants to write this book and he really wants to do his own thing. And so it's a driving force for me to go, how am I going to bring him home so we can work together as a team a lot better? And that he can also live a happier life too. I love my job. I love my clients. I love what I do. And so I want that for him too. Okay. And so I want to share a little bit more about how this year has actually been pretty like a life-changing year. It's a very big business-changing year for a few reasons. All right. There's actually 10. And the first one I already touched on, but like the first one was I bet on myself and I showed up. I'm going to say this a little bit later, but like I showed up in rooms that I was terrified to show up in. I showed up on podcast interviews. I showed up, not as much as I wanted to, but you know what? Baby steps sometimes, slowly getting there is so much better than necessarily jumping all full force in. I'm a huge advocate for moving slow as long as it's super intentional and you know exactly what it's going to do for you. And you also understand that you are going to scale or move or grow slower. If you're okay with that, I'm a projector in human design. And so moving slow is how I have to do things. I have to really think things through. I have to really, all those things. And so I needed to move slow, but I still needed to show up. So I had to be super intentional with how I showed up. Okay. The second thing that was super supportive and helpful this year was I got on sales calls with 6-figure CEOs. That scared the shit out of me. Okay. It's very like, oh my goodness, like, how do I do this? Right. But the best part about it is that I was 100% myself. Now, this happened in 2023. But I want to share this because it was the one call that scared me so much that it allowed me to not feel quite as scared getting on any of the calls in 2024. So I got on a call and the person that was on the other side of the Zoom call asked me a question, and right in the beginning. And I was like so scared and nervous that I stared at the screen and they asked the question and I had no idea what they said. Now I could have pretended that I knew what they said, but instead I decided to be vulnerable and 100% myself. And I said, I am like super nervous right now. Could you please repeat the question? And I actually remember myself visibly, like physically relaxing. My brain suddenly had all the stress released from it. And I could see on the other side of the Zoom screen that they also relaxed. And so right from that moment, the rest of the call was amazing. And I've taken that into consideration when I've gone into any other call. When I get people on the podcast to interview them, I take this into account. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to be honest. But more importantly, you need to be 100% yourself, because those are going to be the people that you vibe with, and those are going to be the people that you want to have clients. Okay? So the third thing that was super game changing for my business this year was that I raised my rates. Now, I didn't raise my rates because, I was doing something fantastic. I actually pivoted my business at the end of 2023, but I was still going into things with my 2023 rates kind of at the old sort of thing that I was doing. And so I was like, okay, we got to pivot a little bit more and raise the rates. But me raising my rates, I actually had less people say no and more people say yes to my higher rates. And so pricing is personal. I've always believed that. And so really take into account, what do you feel worth and what do other people think you're worth? Because I've had the people that pay a higher rate give me far less problems, and they know you're the expert. The people that want to lowball you, they're normally the ones that are giving you a lot more trouble. We're just going to end it there. That's something that I've always heard, but then when I experienced it, I was like, oh, now I get it. This makes a lot of sense. I don't want this. I want to make sure I'm being very selective with who I'm working with and making sure that my rates are my rates. And if you don't want to work with me for those rates, then okay, here's a referral to someone else. Go see if they're a good fit for you, right? That doesn't mean I don't give leeway. There's other things around it, but it's really taking into account a lot of different factors as far as rates. Okay. So the fourth thing that was super game changing for my business is that I've embraced that I'm really freaking good at what I do. And what I do is streamline operations behind the scenes of businesses and making sure things are super delegated and that we've got SOPs and all these things. And then we have a plan. Really freaking good at streamlining operations and planning. And I've been able to embrace that this year with most of my clients and really feel good about what I provide for them. And also, by seeing what it has done in my clients' business, me being myself and me really embracing my expertise, it has allowed me to be able to step into my own business in a more firm manner, but also actually do these things in my business. Since I pivoted at the end of 23 and then things skyrocketed right in Q1 of 2024, it made it a lot harder for me to put in place the foundation that I knew I needed. And so all of 2024 has been a lot of movement and a lot of things happening. But you know what? I was like, I'm not giving up. I am doing these things. And I'm also bringing on more team members to help me actually do these things, which is super helpful. But also planning in advance has been incredibly beneficial. Okay. So the fifth thing that was super game changing this year is I showed up, right? I already said I showed up, but I showed up and I actually shared my expertise in groups and then also in normal conversation. Okay. As I shared earlier, I'm an introvert. I'm a projector. I'm actually an Enneagram 5, if that's helpful. I really have to process things. I was always known as shy growing up. And so being able to see myself step into these groups and in normal conversation and talk about what I do and talk about what I'm passionate about and really being able to refine what I actually do for these CEOs is actually embracing that I'm good at what I do and really being able to step into that space and own it. All right. And so the sixth thing that's been super helpful this year is I've embraced actually asking for testimonials. I don't like it when people tell me like, oh my gosh, you did such a good job, whatever. I used to actually find resistance to that. Like I like to be in the back of the room where no one could see me and I was like invisible. That's how I grew up. I was like the one that don't bring attention to me. Now, I run my own agency and I'm like the face of the agency and now, that has to happen, right? And so asking for this feedback, asking for these testimonials, asking for referrals, right? That has been something that I've been able to embrace this year, and it has tenfold helped me. Like there's not even a comparison to it, but being able to really embrace that and actually, like I said, all of these things together have made me who I am this year, but also have, like I said, this didn't happen overnight, but it finally happened and super excited about it, right? And so I've embraced asking for feedback, testimonials, and asking for referrals, right? So the seventh thing that has been super helpful, and if you have been on this podcast for a hot minute or any part of my world, you know that I love ClickUp. And so I went all in on ClickUp as my expert project management tool. So I streamline ClickUps. If you don't have ClickUp as a client, I'll either convince you to have ClickUp or I will streamline your ClickUp that you already have, right? If you don't even have, some people don't even have a project management tool. So we're totally looking at that. I'm going to say this because I'm going to say this. It's controversial, but if you have Asana, I won't work with you. I won't work with you. I do not like Asana. I know it's a big competitor to ClickUp, but I do not like Asana. I don't like it. So if you have Asana, I won't work with you unless you're like, hey, I have Asana and now I want to move to ClickUp. Then we can talk, right? But that's just a little tidbit. I love ClickUp because it has a framework, but it also allows you to be very creative and customize things, right? Number 8. This one's fun. And this has been super helpful for my mental health is I take naps whenever I freaking want. I'm like, I'm going to lay down for like 30 minutes. Granted, I don't have calls, okay? I'm going to lay down for like 30 minutes. It normally turns into 3 hours. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because my body needed that. And as I've like embraced taking naps and also sleeping in when I need to, it has allowed me to show up as my better self because I actually feel renewed. I mean, heck, there's times sometimes I sleep in so late. Now, I don't normally get up till 9 a.m., but like I sleep in so late that I don't even start working until 2 p.m. As I'm recording this today, I actually didn't start working until 2 p.m. I'm recording this at 12:30 a.m. in the morning, okay? Because I get to create my own schedule and I get to do what I want because I'm the CEO of my business. And if I want to work at midnight, then I can work at midnight. Some people want to work at 6 a.m. Some people don't want to start their day until 9 a.m. You make it your own schedule and you make it work. You make your business around your schedule, your boundaries, and what you need. And that takes me into this next thing. I used to think that I had to have calls 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I decided that I am of no use to my clients or potential clients or anyone for that matter until 10 a.m. Okay. I don't get out of bed until 9 a.m. I go to bed at 2 a.m. because my husband works second shift and I want to see him. Right? So I don't schedule calls before 10 a.m. And you know what? I just embraced that's okay. My clients know that I'm not going to be of use to them until 10 a.m. And they're like, okay, we won't schedule calls until after 10 a.m. or at 10 a.m. Right? And so that has been super helpful for myself to be able to get up at 9, get ready for the day. Or if I don't have any calls at 10, then I just sleep in. Because essentially I try not to have calls because we have Slack and we can communicate via Slack, or we have Loom videos, so we can communicate that way. And we only have calls sparingly because we're busy people and we want to be able to get things done in a very efficient manner. And sometimes hopping on a call isn't as efficient as we'd like to think it is, right? Some of those meetings that could have been an email. Well, yeah, some of these meetings could have been a Slack message. Some of these meetings could have been a Loom video, right? Those types of things. All right. So this last thing is going to be, I've learned to regulate my nervous system and communicate in an effective manner. And so I don't know if you've ever done any work when it comes to regulating your nervous system, but oh my goodness, over the last 2 years, I've been really working on this, but it helps me stay much calmer. It helps me stay regulated, right? That's what we're regulating our nervous system. And being able to do that, regulating my nervous system, but also being able to communicate effectively has helped me work through so many things. And has helped me really step into a leadership role that I really thought I could step into, but never really embraced in the past. But now I can step into it and really feel good about it and not feel like I'm stressed to the max, and feel like I'm going to yell at my kids or feel like I can't get enough sleep. Also, regulating your nervous system, dealing with your nervous system, getting adequate sleep, getting adequate food, nutrition, right? Taking care of your body helps you in great ways be able to have your nervous system feel calm and all those things. I am not an expert in this, but I have friends that are, and I love them to death because they're super fun to be around and so calm, right? So put together, so patient. And I've actually had people tell me that I'm calm and patient until my kids have asked me what's for dinner 500 times, and then I'm not so regulated per se. All right, that's just a little fun joke there. But being able to communicate effectively has been super helpful for me to have difficult conversations and really be able to, I'm talking in business, but also personally. Okay. I've had difficult conversations with myself in a more effective manner. And I owe that a lot to the work I've done over the last couple of years. And so, as you can see, I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of changes. But the biggest change was this, and I haven't touched on this at all. Well, I mean, a little bit, but as how I looked at money and what money could do for me. I've struggled with money for years. And so being able to look at money as a tool instead of a barrier has been incredibly beneficial to make that mindset flip. And so I've been really working on that in 2024. I don't know if you've heard of any limiting beliefs, but I had a limiting belief that I couldn't have an X amount of dollars in my savings account. Otherwise, I had to spend it. I felt like I was like that meme that they got where you're throwing money out the window. Okay. That's what I felt like, because it's like, why I can't make more money because then I'm going to hit this limiting belief that I'm not worth more than this, or I can't have more than this at one time. And then it's just, I'm going to self-sabotage and spend it on something that might be beneficial and might not. I don't know. But I've had to work through these things. And over the course of this year, I've been able to start working through these a lot more. But also, as I'm finishing out 2024, I am working with a money mindset coach and is going to be able to really help me finish this out strong and walk into 2025 really level-headed, as this, I feel like, is the last missing piece of my learning and transformation of 2024. And so I'm super excited to be able to do that. And so I also want to say, what's the best advice that I've received this year? Because I want to share it with you. And this is when I was expanding my team. But I was hesitant on actually releasing that money, right? And teams should pay for themselves, right? So you have two options here. This is what I was given. They said, do you want more money, right? But that also means more time on you. You still have to do the work if you're going to bring in more money, given my model of an agency, right? Or do you want more time? But ultimately, hiring more team allows you to have more time, more immediately, right? A little bit less money, but more time. And in the long run, you actually have more money because a team member should pay for themselves, right? And so I had this told to me, and I looked at hiring team so much different. I now look at time as, what was releasing this money going to do for my time? And where are my priorities? Do I want more time or do I want more money? Do I want to work more hours to have more money, or would I rather work less hours and have more time with my family or whatever I want, right? And I've decided that in this season, I would like to have more time with my family. And so I'm hiring more team, right? And figuring out all the finances behind the scenes and really getting real with myself. I actually just got the questionnaire today as I'm recording this. So a couple weeks ago, if you're listening to this when it goes live, and some of these questions are heavy. And I'm super excited to answer them because I'm super excited to work through them. But it's also like, as I'm like thinking about it, I'm like getting a little dysregulated. So we're not going to say much more, but dysregulate meaning a little tightness in my chest, a little like going on. Okay. So I'm really getting these things right with my finances though, and expanding my team, because ultimately I have a wait list right now. I cannot bring on more high level clients, and I really want to bring on more high level clients. I love every single one that I work with, because like I said, I want more team, and I also want more clients, and I really want this business to continue to grow so I can help more of these people, these CEOs, step into their visionary role, right? And really get things streamlined and simplified behind the scenes so that they can do that and not feel like, there's a barrier in between, where they are and their success on the other side, right? And so that's Q4 goals, right? To really get my finances and really expand the team to set myself up for success. So like walking into 2025 feels a whole lot less heavy. And trust me, I haven't even planned 2025. Like that is on the list here soon to actually plan 2025. But what I do know is this is what I don't want walking into 2025. And sometimes this is all you need. As I don't want to work over 40 hours a week. I'd actually prefer far less. But we're going to go with 40 because 60 has been the common denominator here in 2024 for the most part. And so we don't want to do that. And I don't want to have all of the implementing for my clients on my plate. I went to a retreat. If you listened to last week's episode, I talked about this retreat. But one of the things that they were able to pull out of me is that I'm really good at the how we are going to do all these things. But that doesn't mean that I actually have to do all those things for my clients. I can have team help me. I can do some of it. But as long as I give the direction, the path, the strategy, I can have other people implement the things inside of these businesses. And so that was super powerful for me. And the other thing that I really want is I want my husband home. Okay. And I can have my husband home if I'm working 60 hours a week. I mean, that's defeating the purpose of why I want him home. I want to spend more time with him, and I want to have more time freedom, essentially meaning we can travel more and we can go to have trips and he won't miss all these family things, right? That's why I want my husband home. I do want to spend more time with my kids as well. I homeschool my kids, and so that has been a struggle these last couple of years. And I want to be able to go on more field trips and, just have more fun exploring life with them, right? And I can't do that if I'm working 60-hour weeks. I can't do it well because I can't take care of myself, my house, my kids, my husband, all the things, right? I'm Superwoman, but I don't want to be Superwoman anymore. I would like to be calm, okay? And of course, like I already said, I want to travel more. And because I want to travel more, that means I can't have my husband locked in his job where he works 7 days a week, pretty much. Okay. So I have all of these goals, as I know that I don't want to walk into 2025 with those things. Those are my goals for 2025 is that I want to not have to deal with those things. So I need to make decisions now, right? Roughly 2 to 3 months before that to start setting myself up for success in 2025 so I can start making what those goals are start to come to fruition, right? So I get to show up on these sales calls. I get to accept referrals. I get to ask for testimonials and feedback. I get to communicate effectively, and I get to make good money without a college degree. I did go to college, just never graduated, and do something I'm incredibly passionate about. Okay? That's what I get to do. I get to do those things. It's not an I have to, it's an I get to. And that mindset flip has been monumental for myself and for my family. Okay, so I get to do these things. Like I get the privilege of doing these things, right? I get the privilege of showing up scared on these sales calls sometimes, right? And so I get to look at my books and I get to see that I've more than doubled my revenue this year. Like I actually love looking at money now. Not because I've doubled my revenue, although that's a good perk, right? But because I'm understanding how this finance thing works a lot better. And so I get to celebrate that money is actually flowing to me this time, but I feel like it's genuinely because I've embraced so many other things and I've showed up and I've bet on myself and I've done the things and I've asked the questions. I've really done this hard work that is perfect for me. That's unique to, not necessarily all of it unique to me, but I have really uncovered the root causes of a lot of things and then started figuring, like, solving those things right from that root cause and not just like, looking at the symptoms and treating those. I actually had that conversation with my husband last night. That's really funny. And so I also get to acknowledge, right, these hurdles. I've had plenty of hurdles this year. I've had plenty of setbacks, plenty of burnout, plenty. I've been sick actually more this year because of it, which is why I know I can't walk into 2025 doing the things the same way I did this year, right? And there has been plenty of tears and plenty of desire to burn it all down. And then we go back to why I'm doing this in the first place, right? So I can't burn it down, right? I get to go, how am I going to make this better for the future, right? That's what I get to do. And so I get to be aware of those things, right? I get to make changes and I get to continue moving. And remember, I'm saying I get to, not I have to, I get to, right? And those things don't get to hold, to keep this hold on me like they have in the past. They don't get to. I thought I was going to get through this whole podcast episode without getting super emotional, but not today. Okay, but those things don't get to hold on to me like they have in the past, and that is super powerful. You can make that change today, right now, as you're listening to this. If you haven't done this already, I'm going to give you some action steps, okay? Because I want you to open up your calendar, and I want you to put when you're going to do your reflections for 2024 down. I want you to put it on the calendar, and I want you to sit down and actually reflect on the year. I want to ask yourself these questions, and these are hard questions. You have to be really honest with yourself if you really want to grow. You really want to find the root causes of these things, right? You're going to analyze it from all different directions, okay? And so I want you to ask yourself, what failed miserably? Plain and simple, right? And I want you to also ask yourself, what did you learn or become aware of from that experience, right? It might have been a perceived failure, but as long as you didn't give up and as long as you learned something and you made a change because of it, you have an experience here, right? You have something to walk away with, right? So it's not a failure, it's not a true failure. It's you get to move on, right? You get to learn from it and move on, right? Do things different the next time. But then I don't want you to just stay in that, oh man, I failed at this thing, right? I also want you to look at what did fantastic, what blew it out of the water, okay? What did you learn or become aware of from that experience? Okay, we got to look at it from both sides, right? Well, so what failed miserably and what did you learn or become aware of? What did fantastic and what did you learn or become aware of from that experience? Okay? Be real brutally honest with yourself. And you can even go farther and go, why? Why did I do these things the way that I did them? And how am I going to do things differently? Or what am I going to duplicate or replicate for the future, right? Really ask yourself those questions. But I also want you to ask yourself, what do you need to let go of to actually walk into 2025 with your head held high, and feeling really good, right? What do you need to let go of? Could be other people's judgment, right? You can judge me all you want. You can judge me behind my back. You can judge me to my face. I don't care because I truly believe in myself and embrace myself and what I think and believe in myself, okay? And you're not going to always agree with me. That's plain and simple. But they can think whatever they want, right? So that includes other people's opinions. I always liked the saying and also hated it when I was younger, but other people's opinions are none of your business. I actually embrace that now, right? You can have your opinions. We're not always going to agree on things. We can have the difference of opinions, right? So other people's opinions, I'm just letting go of them, okay? Not that I'm not listening. I'm just not allowing them to affect me in a negative way, okay? Maybe you have to let go of that team member. That, maybe that team member isn't paying for it themselves. Maybe that team member you've given them time and time again, tries and tries, right? And it's just not working out. Maybe it's a bless and release, right? Maybe you have to let go of a client. Maybe there's a client that's super heavy and you need to simply just let them go to have things flow. I actually have someone that in my life that, as there had been other people in their life that had said, you need to let go of this client. They're holding you back from really stepping into what you love to do and having the capacity to do it. And as soon as that client was let go, they actually hit a record month that they hadn't hit in 2 years. So don't let go of the power of letting go of toxic clients or clients that you're no longer vibing with. Okay? There's power in letting things go. And normally it's all good. Okay? And you might even have to let go of some of your offers. Maybe there's an offer that you're not really feeling in love with anymore. Maybe you're not getting the results that you need. Whatever that may be, maybe you have to let go of that offer. Or maybe it just needs to be revamped. That's also a possibility. Or maybe it just needs more time, right? Really give yourself time to see if that offer is good, right? There's so many ways that you can do this, but what are you going to let go of? Because if you're not happy right now with 100% of everything going on, you're not going to want to walk into 2025 with that exact same things, right? So think about what you need to let go of. And that could be anything, right? Anything. All right. So what do you need to actually invest in? Okay. So we talked about what you need to acknowledge, right? We need to review, reflect on what didn't go so well, what went really well, what you need to let go of. And then now we're talking about like, what do you actually need to invest in to make those things happen and you excel in 2025, right? What do you need to invest in to get your body feeling good, right? Because when your body's not feeling good, your mind's not feeling good, right? What do you need to invest in to get your mind feeling less chaotic, right? Maybe getting organized, right? Maybe decluttering. So what do you need to invest in to really have your mind feel less cluttered and chaotic? And what do you need to invest in to have your business feeling less stressful? Okay, really think about it. What do you need to invest in to have your business feeling less stressful? Like I said earlier in this podcast episode, I needed the strategy and accountability. I needed that direction because things felt super stressful. So what do you need? Right? And so I had to treat my business like I was a client this year. And that was a gut punch when I realized that my business looked exactly like my clients' businesses. And I felt like a fraud. And then I recognized that I'm only a fraud if I'm not open about that. I'm only a fraud if I'm not providing the service that I know I can provide to my clients because my businesses behind the scenes looked a little rough, right? So I decided that I didn't want to feel like a fraud anymore. And I wanted to have a business like my clients have, right? Like my clients had, like they have a streamlined operations and things are super organized. And I'm over here like not quite there, right? We can always do things better for other people than we can do for ourselves. Okay. Don't give yourself a hard time. It's legit, which is why I'm sharing it. And so that was the cold, hard truth that I had to come to terms with. And so I had to face that my behind the scenes of my business, my operations looked like a lot of my clients. Especially in a few parts. So it's so easy to get caught up in serving your clients or even your team that you forget about yourself and your own business. And you end up putting it on the back burner. But that also makes you work 60-hour weeks. That's why I was working 60-hour weeks. It wasn't because I had too many clients. It wasn't because I had too much work. It's that I was doing so many things the hard way. My operations weren't streamlined. I wasn't as organized as I needed to be. I didn't have SOPs documented. Okay, there's plenty of reasons why I was working 60-hour weeks. But when you're working 60-hour weeks to try to do the things, you're not really banking on working an extra 10 to actually get the things in place. So I literally took myself with the support of my virtual assistant through my operations assessment that I do with my clients all the time. Literally the exact same document. And I had similar findings to that of my clients when I do them. And that punched me in the gut, okay? But it was also a rude awakening. The root cause of me working 60-hour weeks and feeling super stressed out was the same reason that my clients have. So I didn't want to sit on it, right? Because I'm like, I want this to fix itself. I'm not a person that's, let's put some duct tape on it, but that's what I was doing on here because I didn't have the capacity to do much more. So I had to create it, right? And so what I did next is what changed the rest of the year. Okay, what I did next. And that is I actually stopped ignoring the issues, right? I just said I had to get to the root. I had to acknowledge them. And then I actually have to make the plan to fix them. Another thing that I did though was I actually started taking care of me, prioritizing me. The work will always be there. And that's something I had to remind myself of as someone that has just worked and worked and worked and worked. And I started asking for help without guilt. The reason I wasn't outsourcing, the reason I wasn't delegating properly, the reason I was trying to do everything myself was that I know I can count on me, and I can count on other people too. But like, I was feeling like if I was feeling guilty when asking for help. I felt like it meant something about myself, and it doesn't. It actually means you're super strong when you ask for help. And when you can ask for help without feeling guilty about it, man, you have unleashed something super powerful. And so I actually started looking at myself as the CEO of my own business and not just an implementer in others' businesses. As you can see, there's been a lot of transformations this year. Man, I am like fucking badass at this point, okay? And so I put myself in the right rooms, even when I was terrified. I started conversations, even though I'm an introvert. Although sometimes I'm thinking I'm an ambivert, but I don't know. Talking on stages in front of people still terrifies me. I don't know. But anyway, I looked at the data. I was no longer afraid to try new things. And I actually stopped inventing new offers and simply refined the existing ones. Okay. And so there are so many things I've learned this year that it's absolutely insane. And I hope that this has been super, super helpful for you to kind of like just see the behind the scenes and see that I'm not perfect and see that even someone that's in operations could have a shit show for back end. And that's okay because it's what you do with that information, that plan that you create and what you actually implement that actually matters, right? Because everyone has those rough spots and it depends on what your next step is that defines the future, right? And so I'm going to leave you with this. I want you to invest in your business, but I also want you to invest in yourself, okay? I want you to look at challenges, not as problems. I want you to look at challenges as opportunities because as soon as I flip that, it was game over, all right? I want you to look at the data, the numbers, right? And I want you to track them, all right? And I actually want you to do this last one because so many people do it so late or think that it's not super important to the bottom line. And it is super important to the bottom line. I want you to actually streamline the behind the scenes, right? Those operations. I want you to get organized because I don't want you working 60-hour weeks to keep things moving because you need the revenue or whatever, insert whatever, the reason you're doing it, when you could be easily working 40 just by streamlining your operations. Cut 20 hours off a week, for gosh sakes, just by streamlining the operations. That's powerful, let me tell you. All right. And so my mindset at the beginning of the year, okay, my mindset at the beginning of the year was there's no way I can do this. I had completely flipped my business on its head. I was terrified. And I said, there's no way I can do this. Now I invested in that program that allowed me to really believe that I can do this. All right. And so my mindset now, I also investing in that program surrounded me with a lot of other people that also knew I could do this. So take that in mind. Who you surround yourself with is truly what you're going to end up believing. Okay. So surround yourself with people that believe in themselves and what they do and believe in you. And so because of that, my mindset now is how are we going to make this happen? Whatever, insert the goal, insert, whatever it is. How am I going to make this happen? That's my mindset now. I don't see any challenges as anything more than an opportunity. I don't see any goals as anything more than an opportunity, meaning how am I going to make this happen? Truly what I'm believing. And so as the saying goes, if you think you can or you can't, either way you're right. So why not just think that we can? Okay, so which one are you finishing out 2024 and walking into 2025 with? There's no way I can do this mindset, or how am I going to make this happen mindset, right? And so as always, if you're looking to simplify the behind the scenes of your business, right, and actually streamlining those operations to save you so much time for one, but also so you can step into that visionary role, that's like your desire. You're like, I just want to stay in this high level strategy and I don't want to have to do, scheduling social media, and I don't want to do these like things that are like, why am I doing this, right? Anyone can do this, right? If you really want to step into that visionary role, I actually want you to fill out the work with me form because I want to talk to you. Because if you're at that stage, I really want to freaking talk to you. And so the work with me form is in the show notes. And that next best step for you might just be that conversation with me that you've been dying to have. All right. So long episode, but I hope you enjoyed it. And so until next week, bye for now.